Listen, most people are not failing because they lack talent. They're failing because they ignore the small things. Listen, most people are waiting for a big moment, a breakthrough, a life-changing opportunity, a sudden transformation that fixes everything overnight. They think success arrives like lightning, fast, loud, dramatic. But the truth, it doesn't. And that misunderstanding is exactly why most people stay stuck. Now hear this clearly, your life is not built in big moments. It is built in small decisions, repeated daily, quietly, without attention, without applause, without recognition. And those small decisions become your reality. Now listen, there is a rule that most people ignore because it doesn't feel exciting. It doesn't feel powerful. It doesn't feel like it can change everything, but it can, and it does. It's called the 1% rule. Now hear this, if you improve just 1% every day, you don't stay the same. You don't grow slowly, you transform completely. Because improvement compounds, and compounding is invisible at first. Now think deeply, if you get just a little better today and repeat that tomorrow, and again the next day, you are not just improving, you are building momentum, and momentum changes everything. Now listen carefully. The problem is, most people don't respect small progress, they ignore it. They underestimate it, they skip it, because they want fast results. They want big changes, they want immediate success. But life doesn't work like that. Now hear this, big results are built on small habits. Not once, not sometimes, every single day. Now listen, let me tell you something most people don't realize. You are already living the 1% rule. Right now, the question is, are you using it to build your life or destroy it? Because small habits work both ways. Now think about this. Scrolling for hours every day, that's 1% in the wrong direction. Skipping your work, that's 1% in the wrong direction. Choosing comfort over effort, again, 1% in the wrong direction. And it doesn't feel dangerous. That's the trap, because 1% negative feels harmless. Until it compounds. Now hear this, if you improve 1%, you build strength. If you decline 1%, you build weakness. And both paths look small in the beginning. But over time, they lead to completely different lives. Now listen carefully. The difference between successful people and everyone else is not talent. It's not luck. It's not opportunity. It's daily habits, small actions, repeated consistently. Now hear this, success is not about doing something incredible once. It's about doing something simple again and again. Now think deeply, wake up 1% earlier, focus 1% more, work 1% harder, control your mind 1% better. That's it. Not extreme, not overwhelming, just consistent. Now listen, most people fail because they try to change everything at once. They go from 0 to extreme, and they burn out. But the 1% rule is sustainable. It's realistic. It's powerful, because it builds slowly, but permanently. Now hear this, you don't need to be perfect. You need to be consistent, because consistency is what turns small habits into big results. Lego. Now listen carefully. The hardest part about the 1% rule is trusting it, because you won't see results immediately. You won't feel dramatic change. You won't notice transformation right away. And that's where most people quit. Now hear this, just because you can't see progress doesn't mean it's not happening. Growth is invisible at first, like roots under the ground, before the tree appears. Now listen, your habits are your roots, and your results are your tree. So if you keep changing your habits, even when you don't see results, you are building something powerful. Now hear this, every small action matters, every choice counts, every decision builds direction. Now think about that, your life is not random. It is a reflection of what you repeat. Now listen, you don't need more time. You need better habits with the time you already have. Now hear this, the 1% rule is not about doing more. It's about doing better, little by little, day by day. Now listen carefully. You are one habit away from changing your direction, one decision away from building momentum, one step away from becoming someone different. Now hear this. Don't wait for a big moment. Create small ones. Daily. Now listen. The future you want is not built tomorrow. It is built today through 1% improvement. Now hear this final truth. Small habits don't look powerful, but they are. Because they compound. And compounding always wins in the end. So start small, stay consistent, and trust the process. Because the 1% rule will change everything. Listen, the 1% rule sounds small, almost too small to matter. That's exactly why most people ignore it. Because the human mind is trained to respect big things. Big money, big success, big transformations. But life doesn't change through big moments. It changes through repeated moments. Now hear this. Your habits are not dramatic. They are quiet, almost invisible, but they are shaping everything about you right now. Now listen, every decision you make today is either moving you forward or keeping you in the same place. There is no neutral ground, no pause button on life. Only direction. Now think deeply. What did you do in the last 24 hours? Not what you planned. Not what you intended, but what you actually did. Because that is your real 1%. Now hear this. Most people don't realize it, but they are living by the 1% rule. They are just using it unconsciously. And that's the danger, because without awareness, small habits become permanent patterns. Now listen carefully. 1 hour of distraction doesn't feel dangerous. One skipped task doesn't feel serious. One day of laziness doesn't feel like failure, but repetition turns small actions into identity. Now hear this, you are not what you say, you are what you repeat. Now think about that. If you repeat focus, you become focused. If you repeat distraction, you become distracted. If you repeat discipline, you become disciplined. It is that simple and that powerful. Now listen. The reason most people don't change is because they underestimate time. They want transformation in days. But transformation happens in layers, small layers, stacked over time. Now hear this, the 1% rule is not emotional, it is mathematical. Small improvements compound. Just like small mistakes compound, both lead somewhere. Now listen carefully. You don't need to fix your entire life today. You need to improve one small area, just one. Wake up a little earlier, focus a little longer, waste a little less time, read a little more, move a little more, think a little better. That's it. Now hear this, if you do that consistently, you are no longer the same person. You are evolving, slowly, but permanently. Now think deeply. Most people fail not because they don't try, but because they try too hard for too short. They sprint instead of building endurance, and when results don't appear quickly, they quit. Now hear this, the 1% rule rewards patience. It rewards consistency. It rewards people who stay long enough to see compounding work. Now listen, you won't see results in the beginning. That's normal. You're not supposed to. Because early progress is internal, it's discipline, it's awareness, it's control. Now hear this, the world sees results later, but change starts now, quietly, inside your daily choices. Now listen carefully. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are adding 1% in the right direction. Every time you choose focus over distraction, you are building momentum. Every time you continue when it's boring, you are strengthening your identity. Now think about that. You are not chasing success. You are building the version of you that can handle success. Now hear this. That version is not created in big moments. It is created in small ones, repeated ones, daily ones. Now listen, if you stay consistent with the 1% rule, something will happen over time. Not suddenly, but inevitably. You will look back and realize you are not the same person anymore. Now hear this, and that is the power most people underestimate. They expect change to feel loud. But real change feels quiet, until one day it becomes undeniable. Now listen carefully. You are either building progress or building repetition of your current life. There is no third option, so choose wisely, because your future self is being built right now. Listen, now we go from understanding to application, because knowing the 1% rule means nothing if you don't live it, and living it is where most people fail. Now hear this, the biggest mistake people make is they try to change everything at once. They wake up one day and say, I'm going to fix my life. And they attack everything: sleep, diet, work, focus, habits, everything at once. And within days, they collapse. Not because they are weak, but because they are unstructured. Now listen, the 1% rule is not about intensity. It is about direction. Small corrections made daily, nothing deeply. A plane leaving New York for Los Angeles does not fly in a straight line. It adjusts constantly. Small corrections, left, right, up, down, but always moving forward. And that's how success works. Not perfect movement, but consistent correction. Now hear this, you are allowed to be imperfect, but you are not allowed to be. Inconsistency destroys progress. Now listen, most people think discipline means suffering, but discipline is not punishment. It is alignment. It is alignment. Aligning your actions with your goals. Now hear this, if your goal is success, but your daily actions are distraction, you are not aligned, and misalignment creates frustration. Now think about that. Frustration is not random. It is the result of contradiction. What you want and what you do, not matching. Now listen carefully. The 1% rule fixes that, not by force, but by repetition. Now hear this, you don't need to feel like a new person. You need to act like one time. Then again. Now listen, every repetition matters, even the smallest one, because repetition is identity formation. Now think deeply, you are not trying to become disciplined. You are trying to act disciplined enough times that it becomes who you are. Now hear this, at first discipline feels like effort, later it feels like structure, and eventually it feels like identity. Now listen, that is the transformation. Not motivation, not inspiration, identity shift. Now hear this, the 1% rule works because it bypasses resistance. Your mind resists big change, but it accepts small change. So instead of fighting yourself, you work with yourself. Now listen carefully. Do not underestimate small wins, because small wins build trust, and trust builds momentum, and momentum builds transformation. Now think about this. If you improve just 1% in one area, focus, time, energy, discipline, and you do it daily, you are no longer the same person in 90 days. Now hear this, most people overestimate what they can do in a day and underestimate what they can do in a year. That is why they quit early. They expect fireworks, but growth is silent. Now listen, you don't notice roots growing underground, but they are growing, and one day they hold an entire tree. That is your discipline. Invisible at first, unbreakable later. Now hear this. The reason people fail to change is not lack of knowledge, it is lack of patience. It removes complexity. It brings everything down to one simple question. What did I do today? Now think deeply. Not what you planned, not what you intended, not what you promised, but what actually happened. Now hear this, that is your real direction, not your goals, your actions. Now listen, if your actions are aligned, your future is aligned. If your actions are scattered, your future will be scattered. Now hear this, there is no escaping the system. You are already inside it. You are already participating. The only question is, are you aware of it? Now listen carefully. Awareness is where change begins. Because once you see the pattern, you can no longer pretend it doesn't exist. Now think deeply. You are not stuck. You are patterned, and patterns can be changed, but only through repetition. Now hear this. That is where discipline becomes powerful, not as motivation, but as correction. Daily correction, small correction, consistent correction. Now listen, You don't need to transform overnight. You need to interrupt the old pattern. Just once. Then again. Then again. Now hear this. Every interruption creates space. Space for something new. Space for something better. Space for change. Now listen carefully. But here is the truth most people ignore. The old pattern will fight back. Not loudly, but quietly. It will whisper, adjust today. You can restart tomorrow. This doesn't matter. And if you listen, you lose momentum. Now hear this. That voice is not truth. It is resistance. And resistance appears when change begins. Now listen. The stronger your discipline becomes, the quieter that voice gets. Because consistency weakens resistance. Now think deeply. You are not trying to eliminate struggle. You are trying to outgrow it. Now hear this. The 1% rule is not about avoiding difficulty. It is about becoming capable of handling it. Now listen. Every small disciplined action builds capacity, mental capacity, emotional capacity, behavioral capacity. Now hear this. And capacity is what separates people. Not talent, not luck, not opportunity. Capacity. Now listen carefully. The more you repeat discipline, the more capable you become. And the more capable you become, the easier life feels. Not because life changes, but because you change. Now think deeply. At the beginning, discipline feels heavy. Later, it feels normal. And eventually, it feels like identity. Now hear this. That is the transformation you are moving toward. Not a different life, but a different you. No. Now listen, and once you become that version, you no longer struggle with the same things because you are no longer the same person. Now hear this, the 1% rule is not about improvement alone. It is about evolution. Slow, silent, powerful. Now listen carefully, you are not starting from zero. You are already in motion. The only question is, which direction will you continue? Now think deeply. If you continue the right habits, you will not recognize your future self. And that is the goal. Not comfort, not ease, but transformation. Now hear this, keep going, even when it feels small, even when it feels slow, even when it feels invisible. Because invisible progress is still progress, and over time, it becomes undeniable. Listen, now we go even deeper. Because at this point, it's no longer about understanding the 1% rule. It's about living with the consequences of ignoring it. And that's something most people never think about. They think failure is sudden. They think success is luck. They think life just happens to people. But life doesn't happen to you. It responds to you. Now hear this, every day you wake up, life is taking notes. Not on what you say, but on what you repeat. Your habits, your reactions, your discipline, or your lack of it. Now listen carefully. Most people underestimate this process because it is slow. So slow that it feels like nothing is changing. But slow does not mean powerless. Slow means compounding. Now think deeply. A 1% shift in the wrong direction does not feel dangerous today. But repeated over time, it becomes a lifestyle you can't recognize. Now hear this, that is how people end up stuck, not in one decision, but in thousands of small, ignored decisions. Now listen, and the same is true in reverse. A 1% improvement does not feel powerful today, but repeated over time, it becomes a life people call successful. Now hear this, success is not created in breakthroughs. It is created in build-ups, tiny layers of discipline, stacked without applause. Now listen carefully. There is something uncomfortable you need to accept. No one is coming to fix your consistency. No one is coming to enforce your discipline. No one is coming to remind you every day, this is on you. Now hear this, that is not pressure. That is freedom, because it means your life is not controlled by circumstances. It is controlled by decisions. Now think deeply. If your life is a result of decisions, then your future is changeable at any moment. Not tomorrow, not someday. Now listen. But change requires awareness. And awareness requires honesty. And honesty requires courage. Now hear this. Be honest with your 1%. What are you repeating daily? Not occasionally, not when motivated. Daily. Now listen carefully, because whatever you are repeating is already shaping your identity. Silently, constantly. Constantly? Now think about that. You don't become successful overnight. You become successful in private. Through repeated behavior, no audience, no applause, no validation, just repetition. Now hear this, and the same applies to failure. It is built the same way, quietly, repeatedly, without notice. Now listen, so the question is not, what do I want to become? The question is, what am I repeating that is building me? Now hear this, because your repetition is stronger than your intention. Always. Now listen carefully, you can intend to change your life. But if your repetition stays the same, your life stays the same. Now think deeply. This is where most people get trapped. They think thinking is enough. They think planning is enough. They think motivation is enough. But none of those change your reality. Only repetition does. Now hear this, and repetition is built through discipline, not intensity, not emotion. Not emotion. Discipline. Now listen, this is why the 1% rule is so dangerous in a good way. Because it exposes the truth. It removes excuses. It simplifies everything. Now hear this, you are either improving or maintaining old patterns. There is no third option. Now listen carefully. If you are not intentionally improving, you are unconsciously repeating. An unconscious repetition always leads to the same outcome. Now think deeply. You don't need a dramatic transformation. You need awareness of your daily pattern. That is enough to start change. Now hear this, because once you see your pattern clearly, you cannot unsee it. And once you cannot unsee it, you gain control. Now listen. Control is not built in one moment. It is built in repeated awareness, followed by repeated correction. Now hear this, that is the discipline cycle. Notice. Correct, repeat, again and again. Now listen carefully. Most people want transformation without correction, but correction is the price. Small corrections, daily corrections, consistent corrections. Now think deeply. You don't fix your life once. You adjust it continuously. Now hear this. That is what the 1% rule really is. Not perfection, not pressure. Adjustment. Now listen. And every adjustment brings you closer to alignment. And alignment is where progress becomes inevitable. Now hear this. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are not lost. You are simply in a pattern. And patterns can be changed. But only if you stay aware long enough to change them. Now listen carefully. Stay with it. Stay conscious. Stay disciplined. Because what you repeat next will decide everything that follows.